Do Beverly Hills Cop, the only way it could happen was if all of us were in. 40 years ago, it felt like I had just slid in yesterday. A movie that, people grow up watching. You can figure out a way to connect the dots and bring those characters back. The audiences love it.
The year is 1984. A movie hits theaters that nobody at Paramount Pictures is fully confident about. The script has been rewritten so many times that cast members are receiving fresh pages between takes. The director is chain-smoking through stress levels that would hospitalize a lesser human being. And the lead actor? He wasn't even supposed to be there. 40 years later, Beverly Hills Cop is not just a movie. It is a cultural monument, quoted at barbecues and rewatched by people who have seen it 14 times and will gladly make it 15. But here is what most fans never figured out. The version of this film you fell in love with almost did not exist. What the cast has revealed over decades of interviews and behind-the-scenes accounts is a story far wilder than anything Axel Foley ever improvised. We are talking about a film that survived 2-star replacements, a coin flip, a fruit bowl raid, a caffeine-fueled improv explosion, and a police chief who walked into a scene holding the screenplay he hadn't had time to memorize. Stay locked in. By the end of this video, you are going to look at Beverly Hills Cop completely differently, and at least one reveal is going to send you back to rewatch a scene you have already seen 100 times, this time searching for what was hiding in plain sight. Let us get into it. Chapter 1. The movie that belonged to someone else, twice. Eddie Murphy was not Plan A. He was not even Plan B. Axel Foley was born in the mind of a man who never played him, almost played by a man who would have destroyed him, and finally handed to a 23-year-old who transformed him into one of the most iconic characters in cinema history. Plan A was Mickey Rourke. The script he signed on for barely resembles the film you know, a dark, gritty, violent action picture closer to Death Wish than comedy. Rourke was paid $400,000 just to hold the role while the script went through development. $400,000. Not to film a single scene, just to wait. Eventually his contract expired, he walked away, and Paramount had spent nearly $500,000 on a ghost. Then came Plan B. And Plan B is where things get genuinely alarming for anyone who loves this movie. Sylvester Stallone signed on, actively rewrote the script, stripped out what little comedy remained, and renamed the main character Axel Cabretti, which sounds less like a Detroit detective and more like a villain in an airport paperback. He envisioned massive explosions and ultra-violent set pieces that had Paramount executives doing panicked math on napkins. 2 weeks before filming, Stallone walked away. He later recycled much of his rewrite into his 1986 film Cobra, which nobody is still quoting at barbecues.
The movies I had been seeing, anti-government, anti-everything, and there was no one to root for.
So with 2 weeks to go, Paramount called Eddie Murphy. He stepped into a production still shaped by Stallone's grim, humorless vision. The script Murphy received was not funny. It was the opposite of everything he was as a performer. What happened next is what the cast has been talking about for 4 decades. Chapter 2. What Eddie Murphy actually did on set and why nobody stopped him. Martin Brest has described directing Murphy as less of a creative relationship and more of a controlled experiment in what happens when you point a camera at a force of nature and refuse to call cut. Murphy and Brest, knowing the script was fundamentally wrong for this performer, made a decision that could have gone catastrophically sideways. They leaned into improv, not for a scene here or there, for entire sequences. The movie was being rebuilt in real time while a full studio crew stood around waiting to see what Axel Foley would say next. Judge Reinhold has described it as one of the most exhilarating and terrifying acting experiences of his career.
Do you wish to file charges against this officer for assault?
Look, where I'm from, cops don't file charges against other cops.
You could not prepare for what Murphy was going to do. You could not rehearse your reaction to something that didn't exist until he invented it. Your only job was to stay in the moment and not break, which sounds manageable until you understand that Murphy was actively trying to be as funny as possible, and every instinct in your body was screaming to laugh. In the famous Super Cop scene, where Axel storms into the Beverly Hills police station with a completely unhinged story about a secret detective task force, Most of what Murphy says was not in any script. He was exhausted that day, rarely even touched caffeine, but someone handed him a cup of coffee. He took a couple of sips. Whatever that small amount did to his system, it hit like a switch being thrown. He abandoned the written dialogue entirely and started machine gunning words at a room full of actors who had no idea what was coming. Watch that scene again tonight. Watch John Ashton physically pinch himself to avoid breaking. Watch Reinhold turn away, jaw clenched, fighting a laugh threatening to end the take. Two professional actors reduced to desperate self-control, while a caffeinated 23-year-old rewrote the scene around them. The camera kept rolling because stopping Eddie Murphy in that state would have been like pulling the plug on the greatest live performance anyone on set had ever witnessed. Chapter 3. The audition that became a scene. One of the most beloved comedy pairings of the 1980s was not cast traditionally. John Ashton and Judge Reinhold did not walk into a Beverly Hills Cop audition and read prepared dialogue. Martin Brest brought them into a room together and told them to talk about anything. No script, no sides, just two actors, and Brest watching to see if any real chemistry existed between them. They started arguing. An improvised dispute about diet, digestion, and whether Rosewood was essentially carrying 5 pounds of undigested red meat in his body. Ashton went full grumpy dad, contemptuous, dismissive. Reinhold went wide-eyed and indignant, absolutely certain he was making valid medical points that Ashton lacked the sophistication to appreciate. They bickered like two people stuck in a car for 6 hours with broken air conditioning. Brest liked that audition argument so much that he scripted the stakeout scene based on it, essentially telling Ashton and Reinhold to recreate their casting room fight on camera. That is why the stakeout sequence feels so organic and lived in, because two actors started arguing about bowel movements in a casting room and accidentally invented one of the great comedy partnerships of the decade. Chapter 4. The Man Who Stole the Movie Without Any Training. Bronson Pinchot came in for the art gallery clerk, a character with a handful of lines, essentially set dressing with dialogue.
I'm fine. My name is Serge, and how can I help you?
Yeah, I'm looking for Miss Jenny Summers.
What he walked in with was an accent that seemed to originate from a country that does not appear on any map. Vaguely European, delivered with the bone-deep confidence of someone who has never once questioned whether the way they talk is unusual. Brest, by multiple accounts, stopped the audition and began rethinking the character's entire scope on the spot. Pinchot has revealed where Serge came from, a makeup artist he'd worked with, someone with that casually condescending confidence that makes you feel underdressed just by standing near them. He amplified that energy to a level the original person would have found offensive, wrapped it in the mystery accent, and arrived at Serge. Other roles were trimmed. Exposition was cut, scenes rearranged. The film reorganized itself around a character who was never supposed to matter, because he was too good to stay minor. Pinchot reprised Serge in Beverly Hills Cop 3 and again in Axel F. decades later, because once a character that good exists in a franchise, you do not retire him. Chapter 5. The Director Who Flipped a Coin. Martin Brest had been fired from War Games before Beverly Hills Cop. He was not arriving with momentum. He was arriving with a bruised ego and real doubts about jumping back into a high-pressure studio production that already smelled like a project that could collapse. Producers Don Simpson and Jerry Bruckheimer pursued him hard, and Brest made his decision the way no studio meeting ever anticipates. He pulled out a quarter. Heads, he takes the job. Tails, he walks. It landed on heads. He later framed that coin and hung it on his wall. The making of the film nearly broke him anyway. Every take was a question of whether the tone was landing or tipping into parody on one end or grim thriller on the other. Revised pages were arriving so close to shooting that actors were sometimes performing dialogue less than an hour old. On one particularly brutal day, Brest reportedly smoked 7 packs of cigarettes, roughly 140 cigarettes between action and cut. The film he made under those conditions became the highest-grossing movie of 1984. It beat Ghostbusters. It beat Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. It was the first R-rated film ever to cross $200 million domestically in its original run. That R-rated comedy record stood for 25 years, until The Hangover claimed it in 2009. A coin flip and 7 packs of cigarettes bought cinema 4 decades of Axel Foley. Chapter 6. The Real Cop Who Never Needed Acting Classes. Gil Hill was a real Detroit homicide inspector when Martin Brest found him during location scouting. Brest walked into an actual police station looking for atmosphere and walked past a man sitting behind a desk who looked and sounded so precisely like Inspector Todd, the perpetually exasperated boss who tolerates Axel's chaos only because he legally has to, that no casting process could have manufactured it. Hill had 0 film credits, 0 training. What he had was decades of actual experience telling people exactly what to do and watching them do it immediately. Because in his real life, the people he was directing were not scene partners. Brest's reported direction was simple to the point of genius. Don't act. Just be yourself. It worked completely. Hill came back for Beverly Hills Cop 2 and 3, and that was his entire Hollywood career. After the franchise, he ran for mayor of Detroit. Most actors chase bigger roles after a hit. Gil Hill chased an entire city. Chapter 7. The Banana That Was Never Supposed to Exist. The banana in the tailpipe is one of the most quoted gags of the decade.
Can I get some extra mayo?
Certainly, sir.
Thank you.
And the banana was not in the script. The original scene called for potatoes. Dense, solid, mechanically plausible. Potatoes are the practical choice. Potatoes are also cinematically boring, and the universe agreed because the production was denied kitchen access at the Beverly Wilshire Hotel with no time to negotiate. So the crew raided a decorative fruit bowl in the hotel lobby, grabbed a bunch of bananas, and handed them to Eddie Murphy, like it was always the plan. The prop changed, the dialogue changed, and Murphy improvised, "I ain't falling for no banana in my tailpipe," on the spot. A hotel lobby fruit bowl gave Beverly Hills Cop one of its most enduring moments. The practical problem became the creative solution, and that solution has lasted 40 years. Chapter 8. The City That Was Never Supposed to Be Detroit. Here is a piece of origin history that even dedicated fans rarely know. Axel Foley was not originally from Detroit. The very first draft of this story, written by screenwriter Daniel Bach in 1981 under the title Beverly Drive, featured a Pittsburgh cop, and the character's name was not Axel Foley, it was Axel Ellie. Axel Ellie, the name of someone who leaves handwritten thank you notes and gets upset about minor plumbing issues. It shares almost no DNA with the Axel Foley who talked his way into hotel rooms he had no business being in and out of situations that should have ended his career in the first 20 minutes. The premise had the same skeleton. Blue-collar cop investigates a murder in Beverly Hills, culture clash ensues, but the tone was different. It was gritty and humorless, playing it straight without any comedic relief. Over the course of a decade-long journey from that first draft to the finished film, through multiple writers and multiple rewrites and a Stallone rewrite that nearly turned it into something unrecognizable, the character evolved. Pittsburgh became Detroit. Ellie became Foley. Straight-faced revenge thriller became something looser and funnier and infinitely more rewatchable. The transformation was not clean or deliberate. It was the product of chaos and compromise and a series of decisions made under pressure by people who were figuring out what the movie wanted to be while they were making it. The Axel Foley that audiences fell in love with is not the character that was originally written. He is the character who survived everything that tried to turn him into something lesser. Chapter 9. 3 people all claimed they invented Axel Foley, and they all sound completely sure. Somebody in Hollywood invented Beverly Hills Cop. The question of who is considerably more complicated than it has any right to be, because 3 entirely different people have claimed the credit with the full conviction of people who are not guessing. Claim number 1, then Paramount President Michael Eisner, said the idea came to him in 1975, after being pulled over in Beverly Hills while driving what he described as a battered station wagon. The officer who stopped him was polished, refined, Beverly Hills to his core, and Eisner walked away convinced that the cultural collision between street-level grit and manicured wealth had a movie in it. Claim number 2. Producer Don Simpson, one half of the legendary Simpson-Bruckheimer partnership, said he developed the concept in 1977. A tough,
Producers Don Simpson and Jerry Bruck, box office hits like Beverly Hills Cop, Beverly Hills Cop 2, and Top Gun.
streetwise cop dropped into the wealthy, insulated bubble of Beverly Hills. He has been specific about the year and the idea, and he has been specific about it belonging to him. Claim number 3. Former undercover Beverly Hills officer Lynn Franklin believed the movie borrowed heavily from his 1976 memoir, Sword of Justice. Franklin alleged that screenwriter Daniel Petrie Jr. had access to his book years before the script existed, and that this was not a coincidence. He considered legal action. So the scoreboard reads, 1 studio president with a speeding ticket, 1 mega producer with an ego proportional to his vision, and 1 actual cop with a manuscript and a very specific theory about where Hollywood did its homework. All 3 walked away certain that Axel Foley came from them. What the cast has had to say about this creative confusion is itself revealing, because working on a film where even the origin story is disputed tells you something about the nature of the production. This was never a movie with a clean, singular creative vision. It was a film assembled from competing ideas, rescued from collapse, and shaped by improvisation in real time. That it emerged as a coherent and beloved classic is either a miracle or evidence that some movies are simply determined to exist. Chapter 10. The TV show that got killed by Murphy's own standards. In 2013, somebody at CBS decided that Beverly Hills Cop needed to become a network procedural. This decision raises questions about what exactly that person thought Beverly Hills Cop was, but let us follow the story. CBS developed a full pilot. The main character was Aaron Foley, Axel's son, working as a Beverly Hills detective in the present day. The pilot was going to be directed by Barry Sonnenfeld, the man responsible for Men in Black, which gave it serious creative credibility. And Eddie Murphy was not just lending his name to a press release. He actually showed up in the pilot, guest starring as Axel Foley, and signing on as executive producer. So, established franchise, legitimate creative team, Murphy's actual participation. The pilot went to test screenings. Here is where it gets interesting. Audiences reacted so enthusiastically to Murphy's appearance in the pilot that CBS wanted him back, not as a one-time guest, but on a recurring basis. Come back every few episodes. Be the legacy anchor. Give the show the Axel Foley stamp of approval on a semi-regular schedule. Murphy said no. He was not interested in returning to television in any ongoing capacity, and he was absolutely not going to spend his career making guest appearances in his own franchise on a network schedule. The man created Axel Foley, playing second fiddle to Axel Foley's son on a show that also occupied the same time slot as NCIS. Whatever was not a chapter he intended to write. Without Murphy's recurring commitment, CBS lost interest quickly. Director Sonnenfeld later suggested that corporate turf battles between CBS and Paramount, the kind of executive chess matches that have nothing to do with storytelling and everything to do with who controls what, may have played a role in the project's death. The pilot was shelved. The TV version of Beverly Hills Cop never made it to air. And a decade later, Murphy returned to the role in Beverly Hills Cop, Axel F. on Netflix, on his own terms, in a format he chose. 40 years after the original, he was still the only person who got to decide what happened to Axel Foley. Chapter 11. The sweatshirt that accidentally started a fashion movement. The Mumford High School sweatshirt that Axel Foley wears throughout Beverly Hills Cop was not designed as product placement. It was not a branding exercise. It was not a deliberate choice made to generate merchandise revenue or establish character identity through apparel. The costume department needed Axel to look like he actually came from somewhere. They wanted him to feel authentic, like a man whose wardrobe told the truth about his life before Beverly Hills, before expensive restaurants and polished precincts and people who summer as a verb. Mumford High School was a real Detroit public school. The sweatshirt was real school merchandise. Someone grabbed it because it felt right, threw it on the biggest movie star in America, and did not give it a second thought. Then the movie became the biggest film of 1984. Mumford High was buried under mail orders, thousands of them. Fans in California, New York, Texas, people who had never been within 500 miles of Michigan, were writing in, desperate to own the sweatshirt that Axel Foley wore. A Detroit public school's standard-issue gym clothing had become an object of desire for the entire country, and the school was completely unprepared for any of it. Knockoffs flooded the market. Official replicas followed. Decades later, you can still purchase licensed versions online. A throwaway wardrobe decision made because it felt authentic has been generating sales and cultural recognition for over 40 years. The sweatshirt is still available. Mumford High, however, closed in 2017. Chapter 12. The soundtrack that took over a decade. The Beverly Hills Cop soundtrack did not merely support the film. It colonized the entire year of 1984 and left marks on the decade that are still visible. The centerpiece was a track that had no business becoming a pop hit by any commercial logic of the era. Axel F. by composer Harold Faltermeyer was a pure instrumental. No lyrics, no vocalist, no chorus to carry it. In 1984, instrumentals did not chart. They certainly did not chart high. The conventions of pop radio demanded vocals, demanded narrative, demanded something for a listener to sing along with. Axel F. reached number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100. It parked itself between power ballads and rock anthems and simply refused to leave because the entire country was already humming it involuntarily and there was nothing anyone could do about it. An electric keyboard riff made its way onto the same chart as Bruce Springsteen and Prince and held its position through sheer catchiness. You know the melody. You are almost certainly hearing it in your head right now. That is the point. But the rest of the album hit just as hard. Glenn Frey's The Heat Is On peaked at number 2 and became the unofficial anthem of every high-speed 1980s montage ever committed to film. Neutron Dance by the Pointer Sisters landed in the top 10, synced to the film's opening truck chase with the kind of kinetic energy that grabs an audience in the first minute and does not let go. New Attitude by Patti LaBelle cracked the top 20 and gave LaBelle one of the biggest hits of her career. 4 songs, 4 charting singles, all from the same movie. Most film soundtracks are lucky to produce one memorable track. Beverly Hills Cop produced 4 chart hits and a musical identity so distinctive that the opening bars of Axel F. still function as an immediate cultural signal 40 years later. You hear those first 3 notes and you know exactly where you are. Chapter 13. The evidence hiding in the final cut that Brest left there on purpose. Now we come to the one that changes how you watch the movie. Beverly Hills Cop was being rewritten during production at a pace that would have caused most productions to shut down and reassess.
Did you know that actors Eddie Murphy, John Ashton, and Judge Reinhold improvised most of their lines in the 1984 film Beverly Hills Cop?
Revised pages were being handed to actors between setups. Dialogue was being swapped out minutes before takes. The script was a living document, and it was living fast. In one scene, all of that is permanently visible, if you know what to look for. When Chief Hubbard storms into the Beverly Hills Police Department to confront Axel and the detectives, pay close attention to what actor Stephen Elliott is carrying. Those rolled-up papers that he holds throughout the scene. The ones that look like police reports, case files, the kind of official documents a busy chief would naturally carry through his own department. Those are his script pages. Elliott had received revised dialogue so close to the shooting of that scene that he had not had time to memorize his lines. Rather than stalling production, rather than asking for more time, more rehearsal, more anything, he grabbed the pages, rolled them up to look like something that belonged in a police chief's hand, walked onto set, and performed the scene while holding a screenplay that was still being revised while the movie around it was being filmed. Martin Brest saw it. He knew what those papers were. He left it in the final cut. And Elliott was not alone in that sequence. Ronnie Cox, who played Lieutenant Bogomil, was reportedly delivering dialogue in that same scene that was approximately 30 minutes old. The ink was practically still wet. Most productions rehearse for weeks. Beverly Hills Cop was handing actors warm pages and pointing them toward a camera and trusting that the performers were skilled enough to make it work. They were, and now you know what to look for. Here is the thing about Beverly Hills Cop that all of these cast revelations add up to. This movie should not exist. Not in the form that you love it. Not with the performances you remember. Not with the scenes that are still being quoted at family gatherings 40 years later. It should have been a Mickey Rourke action vehicle that got stuck in development limbo, or a Sylvester Stallone ultra-violent revenge thriller that nobody would be rewatching today, or a network CBS procedural about Axel Foley's son, or a competent but forgettable studio picture made from a finished, rehearsed, properly sourced script featuring potatoes instead of bananas, and an art gallery clerk who said 3 lines and disappeared. Instead, a coin flip hired a director. A caffeinated afternoon produced a legendary improv scene. A hotel lobby fruit bowl replaced a root vegetable and created a catchphrase. A real homicide inspector brought more authenticity to a Hollywood role than most trained actors ever manage. A makeup artist's condescending mannerisms became a beloved character who lasted 4 decades. And a decorative sweatshirt from a Detroit public school accidentally became the most famous piece of athletic apparel in the country. What the cast of Beverly Hills Cop has revealed across 40 years of interviews and accounts and behind-the-scenes stories is that the version of this movie you fell in love with was assembled from improvisation, emergency decisions, pure luck, and the raw talent of people who figured it out as they went. Go back and watch it tonight. Watch Ashton pinch himself. Watch Reinhold fight the laugh. Watch the chief hold his script like it is a police report. Listen to the Axel F theme and think about the instrumental that had no business being a top 3 pop hit and became one anyway. Think about the coin flip. Think about the bananas. And if this video helped you see Beverly Hills Cop in a way you never had before, hit like and subscribe. Drop in the comments. Which of these cast reveals genuinely surprised you the most? And share this with someone who grew up on this movie. They deserve to know what was hiding in plain sight. Until next time, Axel Foley would have talked his way out of a subscription prompt, but you do not have to.